What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so want to go ahead and continue with my pro basketball top 15 shooting guards list. Just to go through a brief recap of the players that have already been unveiled. At number 15, I had Tracy McGrady. Number 14, I had Vince Carter. Number 13, Klay Thompson. At number 12, I had Reggie Miller. Number 11, Ray Allen. Number 10, Earl the Pearl Monroe. Number 9, Sam Jones. Number 8, I had James Harden. Number 7, George Gervin. Number 6, Allen Iverson. And at number 5, it was Clyde Drexler. And number 4, Dwayne Wade. At number 3, I have Jerry West. Now, at one point, I had Jerry West at 4th and Wade 3rd. But as I said in my last video, one of the reasons why I decided to drop Wade down a little bit was to be consistent, because a lot of times we penalize LeBron James for winning 2 championships on a super team, but we don't do the same thing for Wade. Even though I know it's Wade's team, but we don't penalize him for being part of a super team, a ready-made super team, right? So that and some other things made me a little bit more comfortable putting Wade at 4. But I have no problems with anyone having him 3rd. Jerry West, before the rise of Michael Jordan, was the greatest shooting guard in the history of the NBA. In many ways, the top 3 shooting guards, I think you pretty much know who they are now, but the top 3 shooting guards have a lot of similarities in their mental makeup. They were fiercely competitive. They weren't the easiest people to be around. They could be very intense, very focused individuals. I think one of the things that Jerry West lacked, as opposed to the other ones, and you know who I'm talking about, I'm just not naming them right now, is Jerry West had a proclivity to get hurt. Unfortunately, he was a guy that got injured. And I remember reading his autobiography. Sometimes he wondered if there was a genetic component to getting hurt, because, look, for instance, he and Oscar Robertson played the same amount of seasons, 14, came in the same season, 60, 61, left the same season, 73, 74. But Jerry West played in 932 games, while Oscar played in 1,074. He appeared in 140 more games. And that's because Jerry West just had a tendency to get hurt a little bit more. I mean, not to the point like he's Kawhi Leonard, but he did get hurt. Some of that was maybe intensity on the court, playing hard on both ends of the floor, be a little bit smaller. When you're playing full to the hilt like that all game, I guess you will be more prone to suffer injuries. So that was one aspect of Jerry West's game that was a negative. Sometimes he could be prone to hero ball, all right, especially in the playoffs. When he had it going, he could be simply magnificent, like the 63-point game he had against the New York Knicks, who hasn't scored 50 against the Knicks at this point, or the series in 1969 where, despite the fact that his team lost the finals, he's the only player still to this day to win NBA Finals MVP and to be on the losing team. I think he averaged almost 38 points a game in that series. Then, he holds the record for most points per game in an NBA series. I think it was 1965 in a playoff series against the Baltimore Bullets. He averaged an amazing 46.5 points per game in that series. But then there were some games when Jerry West didn't have it going and he could shoot his team out of games. Although I think history will show that happened more with Elgin Baylor than Jerry West. If steals were counted back then, Jerry West would be amongst the leaders all time in steals. I think if steals were counted, he'd probably be second behind only John Stockton. Hell, maybe even first, considering the pace of the game back then. But what he was known for the most was being a great all-around ball player. He was a great all-around player, listed as 6'2", but he really was around 6'3.5". But I don't know why he was always listed as 6'2". That might have been his college height, and he just went with it or whatever. But he was clearly taller than 6'2". But he was a great scorer. He was a very efficient scorer in an era where the average field goal percentage was 45%, 46% for his career. Jerry West shot about 48% from the floor. All right? He was an 81, 82% foul shooter. And let's look at some of his numbers before I go forward. Jerry West, as I said, played in 932 regular season games. And for his career, he averaged 27 points a game, to go along with 5.8 rebounds and 6.7 assists per contest. He shot 47, actually a little bit less than 40. He shot 47.4% from the floor, 81.4% from the charity stripe, and he had 162.6 career win shares in 14 seasons. That's very impressive. Look at some of his advanced stats. He had double-digit win shares 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different times. And in 1969-1970, he led the NBA in win shares. In 1964-65, he led the NBA in win shares per 48 minutes. And in 1965-66, 64-65, and 69-70, he led the NBA in offensive win shares. In 1967-68, he led the NBA in true shooting percentage, as well as in 65-66. And in back-to-back seasons, 68, 69, 69, 70, he led the NBA in PER. So the numbers just show you how much of a dominant player he was for his career. He scored 25,192 points. He corralled 5,366 rebounds and dished 6,238 assists. Now, this is all subjective, but to me, his prime years were from 1961 to maybe about 1970. And during that 9-year span, Jerry West averaged an amazing 29.3 points per game, 6.1 rebounds, 6.1 assists, 47.7% shooting from the floor, 82.3% from the charity stripe. Now, of course, when Jerry West played, there was no three-point line, but he was known for his great, when he was playing, he was known for a couple of things. His great perimeter play and for being clutch. So it's sort of suspected that if the three-point line was around today, he'd probably be one of the better three-point shooters. I mean, you can't put a number on the percentage, but I don't know. It's speculative. I don't know. Maybe 37, 38, 39%. Maybe a couple seasons at 40. That's just a guess. In the playoffs, Jerry West has the, I believe he has the fourth highest playoff scoring average in history behind Michael Jordan, Luka Doncic, and Allen Iverson. He averaged 29.1 points per game in 153 playoff games, 46.9% shooting from the floor, 80.5% for the charity stripe to go along with 5.6 rebounds and 6.3 assists. From 1961 to 1970 in the playoffs, he averaged 31.8 points, 5.6 rebounds, 5.9 assists, shot 48.3% from the floor in that span, and 81.3% from the charity stripe. In his career, he led the playoffs in scoring average 4 times. 1964-65, he averaged 40.6 points per game. 65-66, 34.2. 1967-68, 30.8. And 68-69, 30.9. And to show how he transformed himself into being more of a playmaker at the end, the tail end of his career, 70, 72, and 73, he led the playoffs in assists with 8.4, 8.9, and 7.8. And I forgot to mention, in 71-72, he led the NBA in assists with 9.7. Matter of fact, from 70 to 73, when he was transitioning to being more of a playmaker, while Gil Goodrich was the number one scoring option on the perimeter and on the team, during those years, Jerry West averaged, give me 1 second, 70 to 73, Jerry West averaged 25.2 points, 4.4 rebounds, 9.3 assists, 48.3% shooting from the floor, and 81.8% from the free throw line. But Jerry West was born in 1938 in West Virginia. He was the fifth of 6 children, and West's father physically abused him, and West has stated that for a time he slept with a loaded shotgun under his bed out of fear that he might have to kill his father one day in self-defense. Jerry West was unfortunately a long-time sufferer of depression. He suffered from depression for many, many years. This was, back when they didn't really talk about these types of things. He would have long periods of despondence, isolation. I think it affected his relationship with women, with people. Jerry West probably took losing worse than anybody in the history of the NBA. He took losing very, very badly. Winning, he would have highs, but losing was something that he could sometimes go into a depression when they lost. And when you look at the fact that this guy went 1-8 in the finals, that tells you how depressed he could be. If you looked at that documentary, shockumentary, HBO, they kind of hinted at that with Jerry West, that he could have these long periods where he got severely depressed to the point where maybe he was borderline suicidal. West was an outgoing and aggressive child in his youth. However, in 1951, his older brother David was killed in action in the Korean War, and the trauma turned West into a shy and introverted boy. He was small, frail, and weak, so much so that he needed many vitamin injections from his doctor and was kept apart from children's sports to prevent him from getting seriously injured. Growing up, West spent his days hunting and fishing, but his main activity was shooting at a basketball hoop that a neighbor had nailed to his storage garage. West spent days shooting baskets from every possible angle, ignoring mud and snow in the backyard, as well as his mother's whippings when he came home hours late for dinner. West attended East Bank High School in East Bank, West Virginia from 1952 to to 56. During his first year, he was benched by his coach, Duke Shaver, due to his lack of height. Shaver emphasized the importance of conditioning and defense, which were lessons that the teenager appreciated. West soon became the captain of the freshman team, and during the summer of 53, he grew to 6 feet in height. West eventually became the team's starting small forward, and he quickly established himself as one of the finest West Virginia high school players of his generation. He was named All-State from 53 to 56, then All-American in 56 when he was West Virginia Player of the Year, becoming the state's first high school player to score more than 900 points in a season, with an average of 32.2 points per game. West's mid-range jump shot became his trademark, and he often used it to score while under pressure from opposing defenses. West led East Bank to a state championship on March 24th that year, prompting East Bank High School to change its name to West Bank High School every year on March 24th in honor of their basketball prodigy. This remained in effect until the school closed in 1999. West graduated from high school in 1956, and more than 60 universities showed interest in him. He eventually chose to stay in his home state and attended West Virginia University, located in Morgantown. In his freshman year, West was a member of the WVU freshman squad that achieved a perfect record of 17 wins without a loss over the course of the season. In his first varsity year under head coach Fred Schoss, West scored 17.8 points per game and averaged 11.1 rebounds. He also started in all 28 games while shooting 49.6% from the floor and 73.2% from the charity stripe. This earned him a multitude of honors, among them All-American, Third Team Call-Up, First Team All-Southern Conference, Southern Team Tournament Most Valuable Player Award, and First Team Honors, Chuck Taylor Converse Second Team All-American Honors, and Associated Press and United Press International Third Team All-American Honors. The Mountaineers went 26-2 that year, ending the season with a loss to Manhattan College in postseason tournament play. During his junior year, West scored 26.6 points per game and grabbed 12.3 rebounds. He tied the NCAA 5-game tournament record of 160 points and led all scorers and rebounders in every West Virginia game, including getting 28 points and 11 rebounds in a 71-70 loss to California in the final. West was named Most Outstanding Player of that year's Final Four. In his final collegiate season, West enjoyed several career highs, such as scoring 29.3 points per game, 134 season assists, 16.5 rebounds per game, and a shooting average of 50.4% from the field and 76.6% from the charity stripe. Once again, he was honored with several awards. That year, he also had 30 double-doubles and 15 30-point games. In his collegiate career, West totaled 2,309 points and 1,240 rebounds. He averaged nearly 25 points per game and over 13 rebounds. As of 2011, West holds 12 WVU all-time records. West and Oscar Robertson co-captained the U.S. men's basketball team that won the gold medal at the 1960 Summer Olympics. West made himself available for the 1960 NBA draft. He was drafted with the second overall pick by the Minneapolis Lakers, shortly before the team relocated to Los Angeles. West became the first draft pick ever of the relocated franchise. His college coach was also hired to coach the Lakers. He played West as a guard. In contrast to West's college days as a forward, the Lakers were captained by Hall of Fame forward Elgin Baylor, who was complemented by centers Jim Krebs and Ray Felix, forwards Rudy LaRusso and Tom Hawkins, and guards Rod Hundley from West Virginia like West, who some of you may remember as Hot Rod Hundley, a longtime analyst with the Utah Jazz. Also on the team were Frank Selvey and Bobby Leonard. This team perennially had strong forwards and guards, but as you've heard me say, they were consistently weak at center, giving them a disadvantage against the Boston Celtics with their Hall of Fame center, Bill Russell. And I really don't have to go much forward. I've talked about this constantly. Over the next several seasons, Jerry West and Elgin Baylor formed probably the most dominant tandem in basketball. West initially was the secondary scorer to Baylor, who was averaging 34, 38, 33, whatever. But around 1965, after Baylor suffered a knee injury, West became the more dominant scorer. Baylor still was a good player, but his average dropped more to around 24, 25, 26 points per game. But like I said, even though they were the dominant team in the Western Conference for the most part, and they went to multiple NBA Finals, they just could not beat the Boston Celtics because they were severely outmanned at center by Bill Russell. And those finals is when Bill Russell probably had some of his best series performances. That would change starting in the 1968-69 season for the Lakers. At least they thought so when they acquired Wilt Chamberlain from the Philadelphia 76ers. Now that first year, Wilt was sort of expected to play a role similar to a certain extent that he was playing in Philly. Somewhat, his scoring had been curtailed a bit, but he still could score. All-around player, scorer, rebounder, playmaker, facilitator, what have you. But although in the Lakers that kind of calmed down a little bit more, they weren't running the offense directly through Wilt most of the time. But anyway, they made it all the way to the NBA Finals, and they played an aging Celtic team. And for the most part, the Celtics were not favored. They only went 48-34 that year, and it looked like they were on their last legs. But it would be the Boston Celtics, who would come back, if I'm not mistaken, they came back from a 2-0 deficit to win that series in 7. And part of the reason why LA struggled, aside from the leg injury that Wilt Chamberlain suffered in Game 7 of that series, was that for almost all that series, I think all the series, Jerry West was hampered by I think he had a calf injury. It was either a calf injury or a hamstring injury. And that affected him, especially after Games 2. Because I believe the Celtics' strategy was, even though they were an older team, to play at a fast pace. Because they felt like that would start affecting Jerry West. And even though Jerry West did have a 53-point game in that series, it might have been Game 2. But over the course of that series, that injury began to affect Jerry West's performances. The next year, Bill Russell was gone, retired, as was Sam Jones. Lakers went to the finals, but this time they were going up against the reigning MVP Willis Reed and the New York Knicks. And going into Game 5 of that series, the series was tied 2-2, if I'm not mistaken, when Willis Reed went down with a torn thigh muscle, the recently departed Willis Reed. And in that series, with him being out with a torn thigh muscle, it was expected that the Lakers would seize upon this advantage and win. And in Game 6 they did. With Willis Reed not available, Wilt scored 45 points, and the Lakers tied the series up at 3 games apiece. But we know what happened. Game 7, Willis Reed comes out, despite the fact that he only hit the first 4 shots. The fact he was even coming up and down the court with that type of injury was inspiration enough. And his performance, his presence, It lifted up the Knicks to beat the Lakers in that series, in that game. I think it was 113-99 to win their first championship. The Lakers still had yet to win a championship in LA. In '71, they were eliminated in the Western Conference Finals by the eventual champion Milwaukee Bucks. Yes, back then Milwaukee was in the Western Conference. But in '71-72, it finally came to pass. Even though, ironically, Elgin Baylor retired 9 games to the regular season. Ironically, that game started the now still record 33-game win streak for the Lakers. They won 69 games that year, which was an NBA record for 24 years. And they went on to win their first championship in the city of Los Angeles. It was Jerry West's first championship. Unfortunately, the next year, Jerry West and the Lakers, Wilton Company, were not able to repeat. Age was starting to seriously catch up with this team, and they lost to the New York Knicks once again in 1973. The Knicks won their second title. By 1974, Jerry West was really done by that time. I think he was having serious injury issues. His level of play had fallen far below what he was normally expected of him, and he retired after the 73-74 season. I believe Jerry West, well, I'm just going to do a little bit of, post-career talk with him. For a couple of years, Jerry West was the head coach of the Lakers. He soon found out that he was better off as an executive, advice, behind-the-scenes maneuvering. Jerry West was pivotal in some of his decision making as far as helping to create the Showtime Lakers. And later on, he was the mastermind who suggested that the Lakers try to acquire a young Kobe Bryant. All right. Afterwards, partly because he didn't get along with Phil Jackson, he left the franchise. Worked with the Clippers organization, the Warriors organization. I think he twice won Executive of the Year. But anyway, I want to go and talk about his resume. Jerry West, great mid-range scorer. When he was younger, could take it to the basket. Had one of the quickest releases in the history of the NBA. Premier clutch performer. Such a dominant player that his silhouette, even though the NBA will never admit it, his silhouette is the NBA logo. But anyway, Jerry West, NBA champion, Finals MVP, 1969, 14-time NBA All-Star, NBA All-Star Game MVP, 1972, hit the game-winning shot in that game, 10-time All-NBA First Team, 2-time All-NBA Second Team, 4-time NBA All-Defensive First Team, NBA All-Defensive Second Team, 1969-70 scoring champion, led league in assists 1971-72. He's on the 35th, 50th, and 75th anniversary teams. His number 44 is retired by the Los Angeles Lakers. NCAA Final Four Most Outstanding Player, 2-time consensus First Team All-American, 3rd Team All-American, Associated Press and UPI, 2-time Southern Conference Player of the Year, number 44 retired by the West Virginia Mountaineers, and he won the Presidential Medal of Freedom back in 2019 as an executive, 8-time NBA champion, 1980, 82, 85, 87, and 88, all with the Lakers, 2000 with the Lakers, and 2015 and 2017 with the Warriors. 2 times NBA Executive of the Year, 1995 and 2004. Even though he wasn't a great coach, he still had a winning record, 145 victories, 101 losses, for a 58.9% win percentage, inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame, College Basketball Hall of Famer, won Olympic gold in Rome in 1960, Pan American Games. I think that's FIBA, 1959. The third greatest shooting guard in the history of the NBA. The incomparable Jerry West.